From New York, I'm Chris Hayes. After 2 years of investigations and 3 months of negotiation, the American people finally got to hear from former special counsel Robert Mueller today. And in every conceivable way, Mueller is the opposite of the man who sits in the White House, Donald Trump. The president who luxuriates in the chants of amped up crowds, who will say anything at any time, no matter how vile or how true or false, and who loves nothing more than to have the attention of the nation upon him. The polar opposite of that man was in front of Congress today. Someone who very clearly, almost painfully, wants zero attention on him, who didn't want to be there, and simply wants to have the facts entered into the record. But the facts have always been damning. And today, we heard a blunt, if sometimes halting, recitation of those facts. Facts that have been twisted beyond all recognition by the president's henchmen, the Department of Justice, by the propagandists on Trump TV, by the wannabe Trump TV hosts who make up an alarmingly sizable portion of the United States Congress, and of course, by the president himself. Here are the basics of what was established. Russia criminally sabotaged the U.S. election in a systematic and sustained fashion to get Donald Trump elected president. Donald Trump and his campaign knew Russia was seeking to help him win. Donald Trump and his campaign solicited and encouraged that help in public and in private. And then they tried to lie about and cover up the fact that they had done just that. They lied about and tried to cover up the fact that they had financial ties that may have compromised them. And Donald Trump used the power of the presidency to attempt, unsuccessfully, somewhat remarkably in the final analysis, to subvert and disrupt a federal investigation.
The president has repeatedly claimed that your report found there was no obstruction and that it completely and totally exonerated him. But that is not what your report said, is it?
Correct. It is not what the report said.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Now, in fact, your report expressly states that it does not exonerate the president.
It does.
Your investigation is not a witch hunt, is it?
It is not a witch hunt.
Your investigation found evidence that Russia wanted to help Trump win the election, right?
I think generally that would be accurate.
Russia committed federal crimes in order to help Donald Trump?
When you're talking about the computer crimes charged in our case, absolutely.
The Trump campaign officials built their strategy, their messaging strategy around those stolen documents?
Generally, that's true.
That's the story of what happens. That is a story of what Robert Mueller said today. It's what's in the report. Now, whether it's high crimes and misdemeanors, whether it's federally indictable if the president were indictable, it's obviously, painfully clear the behavior is a violation of the president's oath of office, of his constitutional responsibilities. The behavior is indefensible, unethical. It is, in the words of Robert Mueller himself, unpatriotic.
I gather that you believe that knowingly accepting foreign assistance during a presidential campaign is an unethical thing to do.
And a crime.
And a crime.
Circumstances, yes.
And to the degree,
and a crime given certain circumstances.
And to the degree that it undermines our democracy and our institutions, we can agree that it's also unpatriotic.
True.
And wrong.
True.
Unpatriotic and wrong. True. True. Robert Mueller, as you can see in these clips, if you didn't get a chance to see the hearing today, was evasive and restless, and sometimes he did not appear to have full command of the report that he issued. But it seemed that above all else, Mueller wanted to make sure that he did not overstep the constraints and the boundaries of his role as he understands it. He is clearly someone who believes there is literally one legal and constitutional remedy for a president who violates the law. One. He said it multiple times. Well, he bent over backwards to avoid saying the word impeachment. Mueller did confirm the president can be prosecuted after he leaves office.
Could you charge the president with a crime after he left office?
Yes.
You believe that you could charge the president of the United States with obstruction of justice after he left office?
Yes.
Earlier today and throughout the day, you have stated the policy that a seated president cannot be indicted, correct?
Correct.
And upon questioning this morning, you were asked, could a president be indicted after their service, correct?
Yes.
And your answer was that they could.
They could.
Mueller also seemed to indicate Trump should be prosecuted, but for the office that he holds, before he sort of walked that back.
I believe a reasonable person looking at these facts could conclude that all three elements of the crime of obstruction of justice have been met. And I'd like to ask you, the reason, again, that you did not indict Donald Trump is because of OLC opinion stating that you cannot indict a sitting president, correct?
That is correct. I want to add one correction to my testimony this morning. I want to go back to one thing that was said this morning by Mr. Liu, who said, and I quote, "You didn't charge the president because of the OLC opinion." That is not the correct way to say it. As we say in the report, and as I said at the opening, we did not reach a determination as to whether the president committed a crime.
Despite the correction, it's somewhat hard not to see his first answer as revealing. We've already seen over 1,000 former prosecutors agree that Trump would have been indicted if he wasn't the president. Now, after 7 hours of testimony, Robert Mueller has finished speaking. It's very unlikely we will hear from him again. Big question is, what now? I want to turn now to someone uniquely qualified to talk about what happened today. Former acting Solicitor General and MSNBC legal analyst Neil Katyal, who helped write the current special counsel regulations. What was the most important thing that you heard today?
I think the most important thing occurred in the first 3 minutes of each of the two hearings. So in the first hearing, we saw Representative Nadler say, the president says this report exonerates you, clears you, no collusion, no obstruction. And Mueller absolutely said, hey, that ain't my report. It doesn't say anything like that, putting to the lie to what Trump has been claiming, but also to what Attorney General Barr has been saying, which is, hey, this report totally exonerates the president and the like. So I think that's number one. Then with respect to the second hearing, Representative Schiff, I thought it was devastating, the line of questioning in the first 3 minutes to Mueller. In the first 3 minutes, Schiff basically said, and Mueller agreed, that Russia massively interfered with the presidential election 2016, that Russia did it to help Trump, that was their preferred candidate, that the Trump campaign welcomed all of this assistance, that the president's son even said he loves it, this Russian assistance, and then that Trump sought to make financial profits off of his Moscow Tower deal. I mean, altogether, the picture that's painted, whether you want to call it a high crime and misdemeanor, whatever label you want to call it, a felony, it is someone who is utterly not befitting the presidency.
This question of exoneration I found kind of maddening, right? So there's this little bit of sort of logical trickery going on here. So it goes like this. Under DOJ policy, the president cannot be indicted. Clause 1. Clause 2. Under DOJ policy, you can't say anything derogatory about a person you haven't indicted. Therefore, conclusion, you can't say anything about the president.
Right.
This is the line. As someone who worked on the special counsel regulations, is that a reasonable reading of this situation?
No, the whole thing was insane. I mean, first of all, the idea that the Republicans are saying, Mueller, you're not allowed to exonerate a president or anyone else, when that's, of course, what President Trump has himself been claiming. Totally exonerated.
Right, yes.
Makes it, but look, I think Barr himself, after the report was turned in, said, hey, actually, Mueller could have reached a conclusion about could have exonerated or could have said this person committed a crime. And so I was a little surprised that the Democrats didn't push on that. I thought that was a tremendous missed opportunity. I think in the first hearing we saw lots of missed opportunities. The second hearing, I thought the Intelligence Committee did a great job.
It just seemed to me that we're up at this sort of boundary of the kind of institutional structure of the nation at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the fundamental question is, do we let the Democrats continue with seeing this as a political thing? That's a mistake. This is a rule of law issue, and this is about the heart and soul of our country. I mean, you have a president who, like yesterday, said, Article 2 of the Constitution allows me to do anything, and he acts this way, cozying up to the Russians, doing all of this stuff. I mean, this is precisely what the whole tradition of this country rebels against. It's indeed why we had the revolution. It's why my parents came from India. Because we don't act this way. And how you got a president who's doing it? I mean, it's Nixon. Perhaps it's even worse than Nixon. And I think the Democrats make a real mistake when sitting there thinking, oh, polling for this or that. This is fundamentally about, is this person fit for office? And if he's not, there's one remedy. Mueller didn't want to use the word. It was that word that shall not be named. But it is the word that is what our founders gave us.
All right, Neil Katyal, thank you so much for making time tonight. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.